What's up? My YouTube stream is up. Alright, that's cool. Oh, that shit playing through my thing. Turn that down. Oh yeah, speakers. Oh, I can still record videos. Okay, that's good. I'm learning how to use this shit. This is great. Program. It's not that. We're gonna get some gameplay in for somebody to jump in and start watching my YouTube. Oh, I don't got number 3 subscribers. But I guess he'll put me in the algorithm if I be on him.
laugh. Because as we know, many characters in One Piece have a laugh that is taken from the name of their devil fruit. Some examples are Whitebeard with his Gururara, which comes from his devil fruit, the Guruguro no Mi, and we have Perona with her laugh, the which is of course from her Horo Horo no Mi, and also Big Mom's chef. His laughter was kuku kuku kuku, and his fruit, the kuku kuku no Mi, and that of course lines up with his kuku kuku no Mi fruit. So now if we come to Blackbeard's laugh, the zer ha 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 ha. That begs the question of like, what fruit would that be? If, in theory, it is tied to a fruit, which, consider I'm making this video, I'm pretty sure Yassine is correct regarding that theory. And the answer is, Blackbeard most likely consumed, you guessed it, a mythical Zoan devil fruit. And it could be modeled after the Bai-Zei, or the Bai-Zi, and as it is called in Japan, the Hakutaku. If we combine the first and last letters of his name with the capital letters, we get Ziha, which is Teach's laugh. So anyway, the Bai-Zei, or Bai-Zi, is a spiritual being that is described as a tiger, sheep, or lion, or whatever is important, I suppose. It has several horns and has 3 faces, 1 on the front and 2 on the sides. Each face has 3 sides, and if you'll notice, Blackbeard's flag has 3 skulls on it. And I'm sure almost everyone watching this video is aware that the 3 skulls on Blackbeard's flag has been the crux of countless theories tied to him. And I think it's for good reason, because Oda put that there purposely to, you know, hint at what Teach's secret was. But aside from the skulls, he also has 3 guns. And according to the legend of the Bai-Zei, it has 3 souls. So this could explain why Teach is able to eat 2 extra devil fruits, because he has 2 extra souls for the fruits to take hold of. Now, going back to the Bai-Zei, the most prominent characteristic of it is that whether it's a tiger, sheep, or whatever, it has a beard. And if you'll notice in this picture below, which is, you know, a mock-up of the creature, his beard is very similar to Teach's. Now, does that mean that that's where Oda got it from? Absolutely not. But I think it should be looked at for sure, at least to be considered as a possibility. And also the Bai-Zei is described as like an earthquake-killing yokai, or the earthquake monster, who would like shake the earth when it was angry, allegedly. And I'm sure that's ringing some bells because we all know that Teach has Whitebeard's earthquake fruit, the Guruguro no Mi, we were talking about earlier with his laugh. So that could line up there. And also just the fact that the Bai-Zei is a yokai really makes me think that this is true, because it was recently revealed that Saturn of the Gorosei very likely has a yokai devil fruit in himself, the Ushi Oni. Now, it hasn't been confirmed yet, but man, it's very likely that that is the case. So I'm thinking that Oda probably borrowed a lot of yokais into his mythical Zoans. Now, before we go into more smoking guns and little clues that Oda had left us throughout the series that almost proves that Blackbeard has a mythical Zoan devil fruit already, I just want to go a little more into the Bai-Zei, because its mythology lines up with even more things tied to Blackbeard. So the meaning of the name Bai-Zei in kanji is White Marsh. It's the names of 2 characters related to each other, and also one that killed the other. So you can equate that to Whitebeard and Marshall D. Teach, you know, since Blackbeard killed Whitebeard. Also, the actual pirate from which Teach was quoted was known as Blackbeard, and he was called Edward Teach, and pronounced Edward Thatch. Oda manipulated his name and divided it into 3 related characters: Edward Newgate, Thatch, one of his commanders, who was killed by Teach, and he took both of their fruits. Isn't that crazy? I didn't even realize that until I read this. Like, Blackbeard took Thatch's Darkness Logia because he was the one who discovered it. That was the fruit that Blackbeard was looking for. And then coincidentally, Thatch got it and killed him, took it. And then, you know, of course, famously killed Whitebeard, took his devil fruit. That's so cool and just makes me respect Oda even more. But going back to the Bai-Zei, legend says that it knows all forms of demons and spirits. And that could be relating to what Teach says to Ace in chapter 440, where he says that, and I'm paraphrasing, that he knows all of the devil fruits from reading the Devil Fruit Encyclopedia. And this could explain why his crew is taking all of the strong fruits. You know, Shiryu getting the invisibility fruit, Katarina Devon getting the mythical Ninetales fruit. It's because Teach knows all about these fruits and where to get them. But going more into that, the Baize is also called the Cultured Beast, and its knowledge is said to go back to ancient times. But first, let's talk about the sponsor of this video, The Ridge. Guys, I absolutely love The Ridge. They are one of my favorite companies to work with, and that's because I think they genuinely make great products. Because they just released their new Hyper Lime collection, which was inspired by the fluorescent shades found in high performance gear. With the Hyper Lime wallet and key case, which are both aluminum and powder coated, and the wallet also blocks RFID to prevent wireless theft and is also scratch resistant. They even have a bolt action pen, a water bottle, a beanie, and a razor. So guys, if you're interested in getting your very own Ridge wallet, check the link in the description and make sure you use code BIGZ. That way you'll get 10% off of your purchase. You'll also be helping me out as well. Thanks, guys. And in the Volume 81 SBS, Oda said that Teach's favorite hobby is historical research. And later on in Volume 88 SBS, he says that if Teach was not a pirate, he'd be an archaeologist. And going a little further, the Baize can read all human languages. So that could posit that Blackbeard can read the freaking poneglyphs. And I didn't even think about that before Yassine brought it up here, but that is such an intriguing theory, and I'm thinking it's true because, like, the Blackbeard pirates aren't really worried about getting someone who can read the poneglyphs, right? They've never really brought that up as far as I can remember, and they never really have been looking for someone, and they're not really interested in Robin. Now, we originally thought that they were going to take Pudding from Big Mom to awaken her third eye in order to read the poneglyphs, but maybe that's not it. Maybe they need her for something else because Teach can already read the poneglyphs. Now, another possibility of Teach being able to read the poneglyphs is because he may come from the Buccaneer race that Kuma comes from. They look similar, that's pretty much all I have right now, but considering that Blackbeard is a D, he comes from the Dawn lineage, you know, starting from Joy Boy, and it's very likely that Joy Boy was a Buccaneer himself. I'm not 100% on the Blackbeard reading the poneglyphs, but man, that would be such an incredible reveal, especially if he learned how to do it from consuming the Baize mythical Zoan Devil Fruit. Oh, and also going more into the Baize, it said that its favorite food is herbs, and in Ace's novel, when the Whitebeard crew liberated a village from thieves, the residents gave them all flowers, and Teach, like, ate the flowers, and everyone was amazed. And he asked the crew members to give them their flowers for him to eat. I don't know if that's, like, paralleling to the Baize or whatever, but it is interesting. But also let us go to one of the also other iconic Blackbeard things that hasn't been explained yet, and that's how he was able to injure Shanks. So Shanks' iconic scar is, you know, 3 slashes down his eye. And considering that we saw a flashback of Teach and the Whitebeard pirates with, like, this Vega claw, we just assumed, oh, that's how he got Shanks. He just, I don't know, overpowered him, slashed him down the face with that claw. But what if that is not the case? What if that's why we haven't seen that flashback yet? What if it's because when Shanks was fighting Teach, he pushed him so far as to where Teach had to transform into his mythical Zoan form? And he became the tiger or whatever, and then in that form, he slashed Shanks' eye. And that's how he was able to get that over on Shanks, because he just surprised the crap out of him and caught him with something he wasn't expecting. And that's not an excuse, because Shanks didn't make an excuse either. But I'm just saying that would be an incredible twist. Now, going back to the whole thing about the Baize having multiple souls, and that allows Blackbeard to have 2 extra devil fruits to occupy those souls. Those souls are also like his twins in a way, or his brothers, as to where they represent a different personality of him. And that could be why we see him act differently from time to time. Sometimes cowardly, sometimes charismatic, and sometimes very angry. I mean, yeah, that's the human condition, but we're talking about battle manga here. And also that could explain the inconsistency in his teeth. Sometimes he's missing them, sometimes he's not. And that also, of course, comes full circle with why he doesn't need to sleep. It's because the other soul takes over his consciousness, and then the others just go back into whatever and then just sleep. And this could also explain why Buggy and Shanks said that Blackbeard never sleeps. You know, when we saw them all first meeting in that flashback when they were kids, when the Whitebeard and the Roger Pirates met, it could be because his souls take cycles with his consciousness. So one is awake while the other one sleeps, and, you know, so on and so forth. And of course, it also goes back to when Luffy first met Blackbeard, and he was walking away from that encounter with Zoro. Nami asked about him singularly, but Luffy said no, it's them, which means that Luffy knew that Blackbeard had 3 souls this entire time. Meaning that, of course, he already had that fruit because Blackbeard probably ate this fruit when he was a child, and that parallels to Luffy, who also ate a fruit when he was a child, but not only any fruit, a freaking mythical Zoan. That is right, I think that could be the main linking factor between the ultimate rivals here. The 2 main Ds, Indra and Ashura, Sasuke and Naruto. They both ate mythical Zoans when they were children, and they are both leading them to the dawn in their own individual ways. And as for where Blackbeard could have gotten this fruit as a kid, not really sure, of course. Since it's a mythical Zoan, it's possible that it came from God Valley, since we know that Kaido's Devil Fruit, the mythical fish fruit, the Seiryu model, that was found in God Valley by Big Mom during the big battle between the Rocks Pirates and Roger and Garp. So what if that wasn't the only mythical Zoan devil fruit there? What if there was another? Or maybe even more than just 2, but what if the Baize, or Baize, mythical Zoan fruit was also there, and maybe Rocks was able to steal that and give it to his son, allegedly, who is Teach, you know, Blackbeard. I made a video about that, and I think it's like common knowledge amongst the community at this point that Blackbeard is in some way probably related to Rocks, right? If not his straight up son. So if he was able to eat this mythical Zoan devil fruit at such a young age, it's very possible that that's how he got it. And that could also parallel to Luffy, since Luffy got his mythical Zoan devil fruit from Shanks. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Once again, I want to thank Yasin Boricua for opening my eyes. This was so much fun to read. And yeah, let me know what you think about this theory in the comments, guys. And if you liked the video, please give it a like and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. So today we're going to be talking about the Cross Guild, which in my opinion is one of the most interesting factions right now. And I kind of see what Oda is doing with it. You know, all these significant characters that he has, and he's like, what do I do with them? You know, do I keep branching them off, focusing on their individual storylines? No, it would be easier to just bring them together in a faction. A super powerful, exciting faction. But right now, they're still kind of shallow. And I say that loosely because they have freaking Mihawk on their crew. But what if we already know what the full, or at least the front man, the top crew of the Cross Guild, the frontman of the Cross Guild is going to be? What if we already knew that? And what if I told you that we saw it in Chapter 0?
Well, I didn't think this would be possible, but when you showed me the manga panel, I was transformed. I was born anew.
Sai brought up the idea of something similar, but not with this cast of people. So, and one of them, it makes a lot of sense. The other one, I'm like, ooh, I want to see this happen. I want to see how this goes down. So like, and then yeah, when I got the spoilers of what we're talking about, ooh, I love it. I like what I'm seeing right now.
So if you would have asked me this, I don't know, a couple months ago, I would have been like, oh, that's interesting, but I'm a little apprehensive because, you know, Moria, he seems like he's going to be a part of Blackbeard. Let's see what happens with Moria. Now that we've seen what happens with Moria, he is not with Blackbeard. He is not the 10th captain. It's Kuzan, as we speculated, but he's not even like an ancillary guy. He's just like, he refused
He's just in
them.
jail.
Yeah, he refused Blackbeard, which is kind of foolish. But hey, it seems like it's going to be working out for him because he might wind up joining the Cross Guild. So let me just give some context for anybody who's confused here. So Chapter 0, which was like supplementary material for the Strong World movie, more or less, but also heavily integral to the overall canon regardless. We get more insight into what was happening at Roger's execution. More people that were actually there. And we see just one panel right in the middle of the page. And it is side by side Daffy, Buggy, Mihawk, Crocodile, and freaking Moria. And we already know that the 3 in the center here are the Cross Guild. And now that we know that Moria is not joining Blackbeard, which I was like, you know, what's going on with him? Where's his story? Now I think it's going to be with him joining the Cross Guild, but also we have Daffy on the end here, and he was one of the prime candidates for joining the Cross Guild. And also that leads to, of course, Impelled Down, Prison Break, round 2.
It's gotta happen.
Yeah, yeah. It
Like,
I mean, it's the
especially
trend.
oh yeah, especially with Dofi. I mean, even in Marineford, Crocodile and Dofi were almost like a tag team, where Dofi just kept on following him around, saying, "Hey, you want to team up? Let's rule the world. Let's do our thing." And then Crocodile kept on turning him down. But now that we're time skip, now that Dofi's been defeated and he's in jail, it's like maybe he will take him up on that offer. Maybe the tables have turned, and then Dofi's gonna come running to Crocodile instead. Who knows?
Yeah,
But I
mean,
like the idea of Impelled Down 2.0.
yeah, like the half the reason why Oda keeps certain characters alive is so that he can bring them back, right? It's more of a question of where, and if this is the answer, I think like specifically for Doflamingo, like that was like a natural progression of things, right? Like from the bounties that they put out, it's like it reminded us of Dressrosa. The system that they had, it matches it perfectly. Doflamingo just seems like a character that would fit in like what feels like Buggy Circus, right? Like this dude, like he wasn't he like tightrope walking at one point too. Like this dude actually could just be in a circus. Like that's what Doflamingo kind of is. And Impel Down is kind of interesting because I was having this thought the other day that like Shiki escaped from Impel Down by cutting off his legs and then using his devil fruit powers. I was like, Doflamingo could do that. Like Doflamingo has stitched his organs together, right? Like, so why can't, like when he was like, oh, they sent assassins after me, I'm like, I'm half expecting Doflamingo just escape himself. Whether Impel Down 2.0 is like instigated by an outside party, I don't even think that necessarily needs to happen. I think Doflamingo could just break himself out, like through any means necessary, and then just stitch himself back together like a monster, and then his entire crew's there, right? Like, so he has more than enough reason to break out the other prisoners, and his family's being experimented on. Senior Pink has like got turned into green, well, not him got turned into green blood, but somehow his some kind of juices got extracted, is all I'm gonna put it, right? In that regard, like Doflamingo joining Cross Guild makes a lot more sense than Moria at this point. I have always felt like he wasn't gonna join Blackbeard willingly. Then Moria's just like that kind of like stubborn dude, but especially because like what he killed Absalom from what we understand. But in my opinion, in a lot more of a precarious situation than Doflamingo. Like he's imprisoned underneath an island where it's controlled by an island man devil fruit, and on top of it right now is an admiral and like a god fighting. I don't know how he escapes and manages to get to Cross Guild one way or the other, because when Perona asked Kobe to like, oh, could you free Moria, like was Kobe gonna like let him free? Like was that what Perona thought? You know what I mean? Like it's kind of interesting because it's like, you know, he is a wanted man that, and now Garp is here. Like I'm pretty sure Garp would also capture Moria too. So one way or the other, it's like Moria sees the surface, there's people that don't want him to go to Cross Guild, and I don't know how he gets past that.
Well, you're also presenting both sides of the equation, which is awesome. We should always look at that. But I think you're also setting up how he does escape, because he's in the perfect situation for this mass distraction that's going on right now, which
True.
is the God Garp.
Too much chaos.
Yeah, so much chaos, and you have Perona there, which, you know, she's like the wild card. And then also her just, you know, vocally telling the audience, hey, whoever, not even just Kobe, just whoever, can you know, break Moria out? I think that's setting the seeds for sure. And who knows, maybe we wind up with this little interesting Moria, Kobe, Perona, like on this boat, kind of like this, you know, odd
What a
couple thing
trio.
going on. Yeah. I mean, maybe not, but I just think that Moria, one way or another, gets out of here. I mean, he kind of has to, right?
I feel
Yeah.
like he will, personally. I think Kobe doing this favor for Perona, I feel like it gives it more validity to me, at least, because Kobe will keep his promise. He'll definitely break Gecko Moria out, even though he's a bad guy, even though he's wanted. Kobe at least will let him go. Garp, I'm not too sure, but then again, Garp is just like Luffy, right? Like Luffy, he'll see something, he's like, oh, you made a decision, all right, cool, whatever, and then Luffy just moves on. Like if Zoro made this same deal and Zoro would like say, hey, I'm gonna break out, I don't want to use anybody extreme. Let's say Senor Pink, just for a weird example. If Zoro made a promise to break out Senor Pink, and Luffy and Senor Pink have some bad blood because he was part of the Don Quixote family, Luffy would just say, oh, well, Zoro made that decision. All right, whatever. And then he'd just go about his day. I see Garp doing the exact same thing.
And he probably did that with Roger once or twice.
Oh, yeah. Just good friends at that point.
Yeah, you know, I agree 100%. Like Moria's, like the fact that Oda reintroduced him like this, it's like he's going to play some significant role. Cross Guild just seems like the perfect place for him to go. I'm curious to know how it gets there, and I think it's going to be exciting. I think the other question that I have that, like, you know, is a little bit of a side tangent is more like a lot of people aside from me thought that Moria would have been killed by Blackbeard and his fruit poached, and possibly even taken, right? And one way or the other, my opinion was always just like Moria's, like, I don't think anybody can really get the proficiency that Moria has with his fruit, so I felt like he is vital to his fruit. And now I'm curious why Blackbeard even like imprisoned him that way, right? Like the way he was talking to Law, right, like was kind of interesting because he wanted to like procure his fruit, maybe not for himself, but like Moria's, he kept him alive and imprisoned, and I don't know what that means, and I'm also curious about that because that might also dictate where Moria ends up as well, like the importance that Blackbeard saw in Moria and why he focused on him a little bit and why he offered this to join the crew, because that's also after Kuzan's already there. So we might have even, like, the fact is it's like since Kuzan's in the 10th Titanic, like then Moria would have been the 11th technically, right? So but yeah, I'm hoping for we get a lot more Moria because that's a huge, my Shadows theory hinges on him a lot. So excited if he ends up in
would
Cross
not let the Shadow Fruit just slip away like that.
Yeah,
like I would
so
so take that.
Yeah,
I think the only reason why they didn't take Moria's fruit could just be headcanon, but this is my guess. It's either one, like you said, he's just so proficient at it that they just want to have Moria himself with the crew, or it could just be that everybody already has a devil fruit and they just can't eat another one.
Yeah, but then
That's
he said the thing
possibility.
to Law in the recent chapter where he was just like, you know, I could sell it or I could use it, right? And like
he meant like use the immortal operation surgery, right?
yeah, but like did he mean like force Law, or like meaning like, because in order to sell it he'd have to kill Law, right?
Oh,
like so I figured that it was like sell it and use it was in the same vein of like killing Law, getting the fruit, using it not himself but giving to someone. Like I was confused about that too.
If you really wanted to, if you were a bad guy, you could probably force Law to give you the immortality surgery. Like his whole crew's there. I would honestly start torturing his crew right in front of Law if I was Blackbeard, you know?
True.
Like, hey, you like this bear? Well, they're an endangered species. Boom, and then you start shooting Beppo or something.
Oh wait, that's probably why Beppo hard forced it, because he knew that like that was the situation. He heard Blackbeard saying like, oh, the mortal youth surgery, and Beppo's like, nah, we gotta peace out. He's gonna torture us and make Law use it. That's kind of interesting. I wish they had him say that. Like
we need
Beppo's
torture
like,
at some point here.
no, we don't.
No,
actually, yeah, we do. We do.
We do.
But
you gotta up those stakes.
I said no, we don't, because I'm worried about like where you want that torture to be.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean?
I don't want to elaborate here. This is Zonin's channel, a wholesome place, you know?
Yeah, we have families here, for God's sake.
Family friendly, very welcomed by the One Piece community. One Piece creators love me. This is a great place.
Yeah, all I gotta say is, you know, Sai's favorite character is Vasco Shot, so like that should tell you enough, right, guys?
Vasco Shot's a cool dude, Par. You put me on him.
It's your fault.
Yeah, you won't believe it, Zonin. One day I was at a bar, and I met Par for the first time in real life, and we were drinking at a bar, and then he just turned around and be like, he rubbed his hands and he said, I'm feeling like Vasco Shot right now. And I was like,
absolutely not.
I don't know what that means.
Not me looking at this as an opportunity to change the narrative, and then you switch. Like, listen, Zonin, real quick. He put up on a thumbnail that Vasco Shot's my favorite character. I'm like, yo, what are you doing?
It is. I mean, I don't know what you want me to say.
Jesus.
I'm not a liar, Zonin, you know?
Yeah, you gotta take that video down for misinformation. I forget
Yo,
the other reason you can take down a video for, like, personal information being exposed.
Yeah. Deviancy.
Oh, no.
Alright, so today we're gonna be talking about the 3 ancient weapons. I got my boy Sai Parvision with
What's
me.
up?
How you guys doing?
So, the three ancient weapons, we've got Poseidon, Uranus, and Pluton. And just to quickly go over them for anybody who's confused, Pluton is an ancient battleship that was allegedly constructed sometime during the Void Century on Water 7, and now, after all that time, it is currently under Wano, and it cannot leave Wano unless the surrounding barrier around it comes down. So we know where that is. We've got Poseidon, who is just straight up Shirahoshi. I don't think it's ever like fully explained what this is, but in my opinion, or at least the implication that I see it as, is that Shirahoshi was born with some kind of special like hockey inherent like voice of all things type thing. I assume it boils down to hockey, where she essentially has the ability to communicate with the Sea Kings, and I guess they're like compelled to be subservient to her. This is also another ability that existed during the Void Century with another mermaid princess at that time, and I guess Shirahoshi is the second since then to have this ability. And then allegedly, all of this is alleged. And then we have Uranus, which is the least explained of the three, but in my opinion, I think we have already seen Uranus. It was in chapter 1060, and I think it was the device or the thing that is in the sky that rains down lasers on the Lugia and destroys it. Partly why I think this is because, I mean, that thing is powerful enough to be an ancient weapon, first of all, but also because, you know, these ancient weapons are named after gods. Pluto being the underworld god, Poseidon, ruler of the sea, and then Uranus is, or was the personification of the sky. So that makes sense, you know, in the sky, you see where the others, their realms. So now that we've got that out of the way, let me show you guys something real quick, because what if I told you that we have already seen what the ancient weapons look like? Check this out. This is a cover story from Enel, and it's when he's looking at some of the, I guess you could call these hieroglyphics within the moon. And I think that the three things that we see here are the ancient weapons. So down there on the bottom right is what I think represents Poseidon. That's like the Sea Kings. And then we see two other distinct things. So over to the left, we see this big green thing that looks like a ship to me, right? Or it could be something else. I think this is what Pluton looks like. And then on top of that in the sky, above it, I think that's Uranus. What do you guys think about that?
I definitely heard, like, seen people try to associate this with various, like, use this same source to justify multiple different meanings. One of my favorite ones to get out of the way, though, is like the weird thing for me is the green thing, because it's like, yeah, it's a ship, but like someone said something to me, and ever since they said that, like, I cannot unsee it, which is that green thing looks exactly like the couches that the Gorosei sit on. Like, it's literally like one-to-one if you look at the couches. And ever since he said that, I'm like, maybe this is like symbolic of something else. Maybe, like, you know, like maybe those guys sit at the power or whatever. And I know that's goofy, but like if you look at the Gorosei's couches, then it's like, wait, this guy isn't that crazy. But as far as like the ancient weapons and this being related to them, I definitely like see that. I think someone else brought the point that, like, you know, the 16 lasers that came down Lucia, and you look up at that circle that is there, like the half circle, I think, in the picture, that's what you're referring to when you said Uranus, right? Yeah, so like they pointed out that, like, I think we see 8 like points on it, like 8 bulbs, I guess, and so then if you completed the entire circle, it would be 16, so then you'd get like a entire, you know, device. As far as like the mother frame and then Uranus connection, I definitely I do see a route where that is. I think a lot of people have been, at least when the chapter ended, debating on what mother frame like truly encompassed, and some people, I don't even know if this is the right word, like exonerated Uranus from being involved in that. But from my standpoint, I kind of looked at it like there's like 2 parts, or like Vegapunk provided a part and the world government had another part. So like whether, and it makes the most sense that like Vegapunk provided the power source, which is like tied to Einstein and you know, the atomic bomb, and you know, he designed the mechanism of action like behind it, but he didn't necessarily initially design the atomic bomb. That was like a group like effort between a bunch of people that the government was like spearheading essentially. And so if you like parallel that to like the real world or to the One Piece world, then it's like, you know, the world government has this separate thing, whether it's from the Void Century or something they had made prior by other scientists, because we do know that they did have a bunch of scientists like from the legendary Iron Giant time. Like they've always had scientists. Even Punk Hazard is a remnant of like their scientific experimentation, but that apparently has gone on for centuries. And so I kind of look at that like, yeah, maybe Vegapunk provided the energy source, and that above thing is what like the mother frame that they're discussing. Like there's so many ways you could talk about it. The Sea King one is interesting to me because it's like, to me, when I look at that directly looks like Nola and the lobster that was on the Emperor Cloud in Skypiea. So like there was a giant lobster named Kami, and or like on its face it had written Kami, and then there was a giant lizard thing that looked exactly like that was Nola or Kashigami in the past. And Kashigami was probably from the Void Century, because when you look at how old Nola is in our timeline and how big Nola is, Nola was born 400 years ago and is like comparable in size to Kashigami, and Kashigami was that size 400 years ago. So like that would mean that 400 years ago the Kashigami, that giant lizard, was born in. So it's interesting that they have this drawing on the moon. So like I have a few theories about why these drawings are interesting, because we in this cover story, Oda does a weird like thing with time, and he kind of not scuffs, that's not the right word, like he kind of hides like what time is in this thing. So it's like we don't know if the moon was built on the earth or not, and that's something I actually talked about in my Void Century Uranus video. But as far as what you were saying, I agree, like for the most part, that this thing I feel like there's some kind of connection here. Oda drew something here for sure. But yeah, curious what Sai has to say though.
Yeah, it's funny because like I do look at this and I'm like, okay, this is probably the 3 ancient weapons, but it's like Par said, like the Nola thing and the giant like lobster. I feel like those are very like Skypiea. Like they're huge Skypiea references that would convince Enel that Burka came from the moon and went to Earth, which is like what the whole cover story is about. Like Enel, it's like the irony of it. Like Enel killed all the Burkans, and then he went to Skypiea, and then he's like, oh man, I really want to go to the moon. And then he gets there, and then he sees these moon hieroglyphics, and then he realizes that his people, or the people on the moon, were the Burkans that he slaughtered, and then they wanted to go to Earth. So it's kind of like an endless cycle of, oh man, he messed up. Or not endless cycle, but it's a whole cycle that gets completed here. But as far as the ancient weapon part, I do see it. I see the Sea Kings. I see the random ship that's on Earth. And then I see, you know, the ship they use to go from the moon all the way to Earth. And it's like, yeah, if you really like break it down, those would be the 3 ancient weapons. As far as what that green blob that the people on Earth are standing on, that could very well be Pluton. You know, maybe Pluton is like the embodiment of Earth, or green vines even. See, if we're looking at the Sea Kings and saying, oh yeah, that's Poseidon's power, and then we're looking at the sky and being like, okay, yeah, beams from the sky, that could be Uranus. What could represent the Earth the best? Well, it could be these green vine monster things. And you know, I'm down for it. I'm down for it.
I just sent you guys the couch on the.
Oh my god, it does look like it.
So yeah,
I like it.
I wonder if it's coincidence or intentional. But yeah, if that is Pluton, it looks very strange. But I guess maybe that's what he's going for. But back to what could be Uranus at the top here. I'm glad that you brought up, Par, about the whole thing about Mother Frame / Mother Flame. You know, at first glance of reading this chapter, it was like, oh, the Mother Frame, it wasn't Uranus. It was actually this new proprietary thing that Vegapunk made. Well, it's like, maybe it actually is just a new power source that he was able to make, because Vegapunk did say that he couldn't replicate the power source that they had back in the Void Century. And I assume that that's what was needed to power Pluton, because also in this chapter, Ivankov says, and I thought it was weird at the time, but now putting it into this context, I think it makes more sense. He says, you know, if this thing that you saw fly over the clouds and destroy an entire nation was a government weapon, then only Vegapunk could have created it. And but what if it were an ancient weapon? And if Imu were alive since ancient times, it all links up. So it's like, I think it was an ancient weapon, and what Vegapunk did here was replicate like a synthetic power source to power Uranus, because also the whole Mother Flame thing, and I know it says Mother Frame in the official, but you know, as we talked about before, the Japanese fandom think that flame is way more applicable to a more accurate translation. So keep in mind flame. Now look back at the picture on the wall of what allegedly could be Uranus. In the center there, kind of looks like a flame to me.
Yeah,
Oh, it does, huh?
yeah, it does. It's,
You know-
some people have thought, if you recall at the end of the cover story, this Enel cover story, like Enel ends up powering up this like circular thing, and it powers the entire moon. And we don't necessarily like, that's a whole separate thing. 'Cause, like he's not like continuously charging that thing. He just shot it one time and then now it's going. So it's like, you know, as far as like the Vegapunk ancient weapon thing going on, Sai and I have talked about this on a few of our collabs, where the way I've seen it is that Vegapunk is kind of like a teaser into the ancient weapons. He's basically made the prototypes or like the pathway towards it. So like when we first got introduced to Vegapunk, we saw mechanized sea beasts, and that's literally just like a few steps away from creating Poseidon. All you have to do is figure out how to make it hereditary and how to make it like controlling giant sea kings, right? And then for me, like I've talked about the 8 air cons and the sky clouds, for those that know like my Pluton, my Uranus Pluton theory, which is like there's something, I think clouds are important or something. Like it's just like the ancient weapons, they're allegedly weapons, but at the end of the day, it's like Shirahoshi doesn't have to be a weapon. She was regarded as either the world's savior or the person who could sink the world. And I think all the weapons were meant for one thing, but then were ultimately used or demonstrated to be very powerful, and that created fear and can be scary. And so like and as far as like the Mother Frame and Mother Flame thing goes, like I it's just weird. Like I don't necessarily know if it's gonna be like a giant laser beam type of thing. So I feel like the world government had like if you remember, this is my brain's confusing a bunch of different things, but like if you remember the anti-Pluton, the anti-Pluton was like this monstrous thing that was meant to take down Pluton, and that was something that the world government was trying to get. Like they were directly in contact with a bunch of people to get that, and they made it as a counter weapon. And I almost wonder if that counter weapon is something that they had and Vegapunk provided this power source for. And going back to like the pathways to the ancient weapons, like Vegapunk probably, if once we end up revealing all of the ancient weapons, where we could probably go back to Egghead and see like, oh, Vegapunk made this, and he was like recreating this old tech, he just didn't know what it was. And so whether it's the anti-gravity thing, like there's so much on Egghead, the holograms, like there's so many things there that if you just like made one level crazier, they could be ancient weapons. Like there's so many different things, and like I feel like it makes the most sense that Vegapunk didn't make the ancient weapon, but the world government had something that could spin his product or his creation into an evil way. And I think the anti-Pluton thing is something that I'm curious about, because that is something we know the world government was chasing, and maybe it was because they were trying to figure out how to make that power source, right? Like maybe the blueprints had that, and you know, Frankie ended up burning them, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if it's something there. Maybe if they had that, they wouldn't have needed Vegapunk in the first place. Maybe it's something on the